Great communicators create tension and avoid tenseness. What's the difference? Tension arises in your listener's mind when you play with their expectations. You can create tension with your pauses, for example. I could ask a question and then pause and build expectation for the response, creating tension. Tenseness, on the other hand, arises as a physiological response to fear. In the case of public speaking, for example, this is a fear of rejection. When the person you're talking to doesn't feel any tension in your words, you will be perceived as boring. When the person you're talking to doesn't feel any tenseness in your body, you will be perceived as exciting. If you want to be a better communicator, you need to learn how to manage tension and how to remove as much tenseness as possible from your body. Here is how to remove tenseness from your body. 2 steps. First, soften the front, and then second, open the front. All of the vulnerable parts of our body are on the front of our body. Our face, our neck, our abdomen, our chest, our underarms, our palms. And when we feel threatened in our environment, we tend to hide these vulnerable parts of our body. We harden them and we contract them. We make them smaller. Conversely, when we trust our environment or the people that we're around, we tend to soften our front and open our front. We tend to expand our rib cage, stand a little taller, and keep our shoulders back. This response isn't unique to humans. For example, if you're petting a dog and the dog trusts you, it might roll on its back to expose the soft part of its belly to be rubbed. Let's start with softening the front. The first thing we do when we feel threatened, typically, is we harden the front. This is called armoring, and it can happen in a split second. For example, you could imagine somebody throwing a snowball at your face and you don't have much time to react. What happens instinctively? Well, you tend to shrink the muscles in your face, you squint, your lips disappear, you might tense up your muscles and make your limbs stiffer to brace for the impact. Now, the sad thing is that many people exhibit these symptoms throughout the day. They go through their day in a perpetual state of clenching and tightening and bracing. This idea of armoring tends to happen most frequently in the face, in the shoulders, and in the belly. So this is where we can concentrate on de-armoring. The clearest sign of tenseness in the face is in your eyes and your mouth. Typically, if you're tense in your face, your eyes will squint and your lips will disappear. So if you want to remove tenseness in your face, you can start with your eyes and your mouth. Start by opening your eyes as much as possible without creating a staring look, which would freak people out. And open your lips as much as possible without opening your actual mouth and creating duck lips. So you don't want this. But you want to display the fullness of your lips, which really just means relax the muscles around your mouth. Let's move now to the shoulders. The shoulders tend to rise when you tense up. This is called turtling because it resembles a turtle retreating into its shell. To de-armor your shoulders, all you need to do is let them rest gently at your sides. Think shoulders away from ears. So you want to keep your shoulders away from your ears. One thing you can do is roll them up and then back and then down to have them rest naturally at your side. The third place where you typically armor or harden your front is in your belly. So if your belly is not rising and falling visibly as you breathe, that's a sign, or it could be a sign, that your core is too tense. So to loosen up this tension and soften your core, try to breathe deeply from your belly. After you have softened the front, the next thing you want to do is open the front. A great example of a closed front is a boxer who's in the midst of a fight. What does a boxer look like when they're fighting? Well, typically they're blocking their torso with their arms. They're hunching over a little bit so that their spine is curled. They're typically at an angle facing their opponent, and they're generally trying to make their front as small as possible to minimize impact from their opponent. Each of these gestures shields your vital organs from attack. You can think of it this way. You close off your front by contracting and shrinking it, and you open up your front by expanding it. So that's tenseness. You want to avoid as much tenseness as possible in your body. Let's turn now briefly to tension. And this is something that you do want to create when you're in conversation. Tension is created in one of 2 ways, as far as I'm concerned. The first way is by building somebody's expectation for what you're about to say. And the second way is to disrupt somebody's expectation for what they thought you were going to say. In both cases, tension is intimately connected with expectation. You can build somebody's expectation by creating what's called an open loop. And this is just a statement or maybe a question that the listener, the person you're talking to, expects you to complete or answer or respond to later on in the conversation. So for example, I could say, "You won't believe what happened to me last week." Your listener is now experiencing tension because you've created a question in their mind that needs to be answered. And you can do this all the time in conversation to keep the conversation interesting and exciting. So remember this: if you can remove all tenseness from your body while at the same time creating tension in the mind of the person that you're talking to, you will be a much more engaging and interesting person in conversation.